And if, to the extent you can have legislation that's shovel-ready, there's a lot of it that's ready to go, and a lot of it's supported by folks in this group.
Senator Chadwick, regardless of specifics for now, is the super committee product, in your view, an appropriate venue for short-term job creation?
I don't think there's any question about it. You saw what CBO Director Elmendorf said yesterday before the Senate Finance Committee. He said that if you have even, meaningful corporate tax reform, that you're going to see a growth in this economy like we've never seen. It's going to increase revenues without increasing tax rates. You're going to be able to lower tax rates to historic lows if you eliminate tax expenditures and tax deductions, as has been proposed in several different bipartisan proposals. That in and of itself will invigorate the economy, and without question will create jobs in a way like we've never seen.
And it's okay, to get specific then, since you have tax reform and lowering tax rates, is some spending within that vehicle appropriate as well for short-term job creation?
Well, I think that's an issue that they've got to look at. There are a number of us who feel like if you have increased spending, that it needs to be paid for. It needs to be paid for in the right way. And that's a different debate, but that is a part of the overall package I know that we'll be getting from the president on an entirely different issue.
Given that none of the leadership picked any of the Gang of Six members, people who had their own plans, and do you think that ultimately leadership really wants a big package that has a lot of pain in it, that there's the will not just among the 34 who signed this, but among the leadership who runs the show?
I think we need to let the guy who's been fighting this battle longer than anybody on the Hill answer that question.
You know, look, we're not here to speak for the leadership. We're here to speak for this group that is stepping forward in a bipartisan way, saying to the special committee, go big, be bold, let's really address the problem, and look at the work that's already been done. You have the work of the Fiscal Commission, the work of the Group of Six, the work of Domenici Rivlin. You have the excellent tax reform proposal been put forward by Senator Wyden and Senator Coates. These things should all be looked at. Frankly, they don't have time to reinvent the wheel. In the Group of Six alone, we spent hundreds and hundreds of hours. They don't have that kind of time. So I think they're going to have to borrow heavily from the work that's already been done.
Senator Conrad, I guess, seems also pretty clear that they don't have the time to do something as complex as tax reform, which is part of the glue that's holding this group together. So if they can't do tax reform in the time frame, how do you address that issue in a way that allows the end result to be big?
They could lay out a commitment to do tax reform and lay out an assignment to the committees of jurisdiction to provide it within a certain time frame as part of an overall package. You know, if you look back at both Simpson-Bowles and the Group of Six, both of them adopted a very similar approach to give an assignment to the committees of jurisdiction on what they needed to achieve through tax reform.
Let me
touch on this in terms of tax reform. First, look already at the number of times tax reform has come up in the super committees. So if you ask about the leadership, it's clear that it is now on the table. And my view is that it would be possible to put together a guaranteed legislative path to completing tax reform by early next year. This is an issue now where if there is a will, there is a way. We've done it before on the jobs question when Democrats and Republicans teamed up. In 1986, we created 6.3 million new jobs in 2 years after that legislation was passed. There have been projections that we could even exceed it. We understand what the challenge is, and that is to give up tax preferences, inefficient tax preferences that are on the books today, to hold down marginal rates for everybody and keep some fairness with a graduated rate structure. And it's now outlined in a variety of proposals. I've had a chance to work with a bipartisan group now for 3 or 4 years. Senator Gregg and I now Senator Coates and Senator Begich. Tax reform is an issue that if there is a will, there is a way, and there is a path to getting it done by early next year. And I want to let Senator Coates get
Well, just 2 points. I want to emphasize that what has been said before, and that is this committee has very little time to come forward with a substantive package. And frankly, what we are asking and hoping that they will do. So they need to look at what has gone before. Now, I give great credit to Mark Warner and Saxby Chambliss and the Gang of Six for the efforts that they put in, literally maybe thousands of hours, if not hundreds of hours. They have something in place that they can be built off of, by this special committee. Ron Wyden and Judd Gregg, and I was privileged to inherit the work that they put together. This is a 2.5-year project that is underway. It has been vetted, it has been scored. It is revenue neutral. It doesn't raise some of the issues that might take it down. That is in place to go forward with. So it's not like they're reinventing starting all over here to invent the wheel. It's there, something to look at. So whether it's Bowles Simpson, Gang of Six, Wyden Coates tax reform, it's out there for them to work with and fine tune. And frankly, they just have a few weeks to do it. And I don't see how they can get to where we all want them to get to without following that model.
Since we've taken a lot of your time, and it's a half hour, and people's lunch is coming up, we'll take one more, maybe.
So I have a question for the Republicans here. Could any Republicans here support tax reform that would be considered a net tax increase? Would the amount that the tax expenditures were lowered or eliminated, would that have to be offset or exceeded by reducing the rates?
I think you've seen plans that we've signed up for.
Well, let me make sure that we're very clear that, first of all, we're not telling the committee what to do, but we're encouraging them to look at the tax reform proposals that have been laid out there. None of us want to raise taxes. What we want to do is we want to close the spending and revenue gap. We want to close that 25% of GDP that we spend versus that 14.5% of revenue that's coming in. We've all come up with different ways to increase that revenue and reduce that spending, and we're going to continue to promote plans that will increase revenue through dramatic changes in the tax code. And you can do so without raising tax rates. You can actually lower tax rates. You can do so without raising taxes. Just in addressing the question on the economic growth, that's a perfect example, and that's not anybody who is a part of this group or any other group that's made a proposal. That's the director of the CBO. He says if you broaden the base, exact words that we've been using, you broaden the base and you energize the economy, then you will see the revenues increase to point to where they need to be able to address the debt.
But all the revenues would be coming from the growth projection, from a pro-growth score, from a dynamic score, not from actually raising the net level. Of tax.
We're not going to dictate to the committee how they approach it.
We've got plans out there that have been scored by CBO and others. I don't know if Johnny and Gene, anybody else wants to add 2 cents before we go, or should we? Yeah, Johnny, Gene, Gene.
On the spending question that the gentleman asked back here, I think the answer to that is if we meet the challenge before us, corporate America will be spending the money and they'll be hiring people to come back. And the spending we need to see in our economy is in the private sector, not in more government. So if we can lay a platform and a template that brings about growth, that expenditure and those jobs will come from the investment of the private sector.
Gene, do you want to add? Or we got actually 3 parties here. I don't know if Senator Lieberman wants to add a closing.
I want to ask the 2/3 of the independent caucus to. We're sorry Bernie couldn't be here today.
We'd be together as friends. That's right. What a team.
Well, what can we say? I'm excited to be here. The Gang of Six grows to the group of 36. You asked a question about what the leadership reaction to this will be. If 36 of us in the Senate across party lines stick together, the leadership has to react. Maybe they'll look back and say that today was the beginning of the Washington spring, as opposed to other springs that are occurring elsewhere in the world.
It's getting dangerous here.
Anyway, look, I thought what Kelly said before is so true. To put America in the deep fiscal hole we're in today took a lot of irresponsible behavior by members of both parties in both houses of Congress and in the White House. And to get us out of the hole is going to take a lot of responsible behavior by members of both parties in both houses of Congress and in the White House. And I think today is a day that should give this group, should give the American people hope that that might actually happen in this session.
Just to wrap it up then, we can legislate around here. We know how to do that. We know how to stop things. But one thing that is difficult, it's kind of beyond our control, is how we can lend an air of confidence to the American people that we can actually make something happen. And if you don't leave this press conference today feeling a little more confident that this Congress, or at least this Senate, can act together, not for the good of our respective parties, but for the good of the American people, then I would suggest you didn't pay close enough attention to those who were gathered here today. I think today sends a very strong signal of hope and of confidence that this process can work for the betterment of the country. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
I'm joining you.
All right.